Hello and welcome back. In this section, we are going to look into the object-oriented programming of Python with classes. Now, there are a lot of things to learn and understand, but we will walk through you the basic of object-oriented quickly so you can get a good exposure and hands-on understanding about this. So, to give you a point, variable list dictionary elements in Python are already in objects. So, when you are basically creating those, internally, they will be handled as Python object of type variable, list, and dictionary. Now, let's go ahead in our Jupyter Notebook and try to create some classes and understand what is object-oriented programming in a nutshell. So let's look into the syntax in the Python. So we will be going into Jupyter and creating a new notebook in Python 2, and in a couple of seconds, the first thing we will be doing is creating a name here. So all the functionality of the classes and object-oriented programming will go here. Now, if you are familiar with C++ or Java, which have the object-oriented concept, now the object-oriented concept is one of the popular way or paradigm which one follows while developing an application. If you are from SAP background or enterprise development background, we are also using in ABAP language the object-oriented programming. In JavaScript, the object-oriented programming is achieved with prototypal inheritance. Keeping the discussion short, in this we will be starting the basic syntax of object-oriented programming. For that, we will be creating a class. In this section, we will be starting and working with the practical part of object-oriented programming, and we will be looking into class and the way we can use or implement those paradigms with Python. So the first thing which we will be creating is a class. So let's create a class, simple C, and I will be just using this pass. Now, what you have to do on a syntax level is add a colon at the end and add a tab here. So once I press Control Enter, then simple C is going to be a class. So if I check the type of my simple C, it will be basically a class object. And if I try to create an instance of this class object, then let's say simple variable equal to, make this v caps, simple C, and to create an object of simple C class, I will have to pass the parenthesis at the end. And let's try to run it, and I will be checking the type of simple V, which is going to be an instance of class simple C. So here, if I try to run this, you can see that this is basically an instance of a class. So we have a class, and the object we create of that particular class is the class instance. So this is nothing new. If you are familiar with object-oriented programming, this is exactly the same thing. In Python specifically, if we are mentioning a pass, that means we don't want to do anything. It's a very simple example. So let's try to go ahead and complicate this code. So the first thing which I would like to introduce in a class, let's try to create a class simple CB, simple CA, underscore A. So this is a simple class A, and there's a method called init. Most of you might really guess that this is a initialization method. In Python, when you're defining a init function inside a class, it basically acts as a constructor, and it takes few arguments. The first argument of any function which you define inside a class is self. This is more like a this pointer, if you understand what this pointer is. Basically, self refers to the context inside the class. If my class contains any variable, any functions, then with the help of the self, I will be able to access those. We will be looking into details of what is that in coming few sections. So let's carry along. So the first thing I will be passing within this init function, which is going to be the constructor, is name and a symbol. So let's try to define something inside it. So inside this, I will be mostly doing initialization of this name, and whatever name user is passing when they are instantiating a class of simple C underscore A, then that particular name I will be keeping and adding it with self. And the same thing I will do with symbol here. So I will be basically placing this name with a symbol, and this is exactly what I need. So let's try to create an object of simple CA, and I will be passing within this class the name as Ajay, any symbol which can be like a star, and I will be assigning it to obj A. And when I run this and I try to see and access the object's attributes, which are going to be the variables inside this class, what I can do is I will use a dot and I will be writing name. As I have mentioned self.name, the self is the context inside this class. So the name will be the attribute of simple C underscore A class. And as soon as I print it, I will be able to see Ajay here. And in the next line, I will be able to also get this symbol if I try to print it. So this is basic about defining a class using the constructor, how you instantiate an object. Object A is instantiated by passing value to init constructor, and self is the context inside the class. And all the variables which has been attached inside the class are referred to as attributes. Now the second category which we will be encountering in a class are going to be modules or methods. Methods are functions which are defined. For example, if I define multiple functions like add, and always, as I have mentioned already, the first argument is going to be self, and I pass two variables A and B, and I will be just returning A plus B. Now what I will be basically doing inside this definition function is trying to add both of this value. So what I can do here is creating a attribute inside my class, let's say result, and I will be assigning it to 0, and here I will be saying self result equal to A plus B, and I will execute it. And in the next line, I will be creating an instance, say obj C underscore A, and we are saying simple CA, and we can just pass any name. It can be an integer as well. I can just pass 1 or 2. Now one thing which I would like to mention here is if we don't pass these two parameters which we have defined in the constructor, then it will throw an error. For example, let's run this and everything is fine, but if I skip any one of the argument, you will be getting a type error. So you have to give both of this argument properly. Now what I will be doing here is I will be taking this object C underscore A and calling this add method, and I will be passing 2 and 3, and basically it will give me the result. So the result is 5. Now also I have this result attribute which is being added to the self. So this becomes a attribute to the class which I can just call with result, and I will be seeing the result 5. I can also remove it, and still if I try to execute again all the line of the code, and let me try to pass a different argument here, and let's pass 8 here and try to run the result here and see the attribute, you will be again getting 10. So one of the common method of doing object-oriented programming, which we will be seeing a lot when we will be working with Flask to create our own Python servers. We will be doing most of the development inside the project core with Flask, a simple way to implement Python APIs with the object-oriented concept, where this will be standard basic prerequisite you need to understand to be able to perform those activities. So now let's move on, and we try to do some of the complicated operations and try to play with our class. Now the first thing I would like to show you is there's a function called dir out of the box which we can pass any class and understand what are all the definitions which are present. It will basically give us all the functions and attribute attached to it. So you can see in this class simple C underscore A, we have doc, which is the documentation, part of it. We have init acting as a constructor. We have modules, and we also have an add function. So these are basically all the functionalities which has been provided here. Now, one thing which you will see is if I pass this object c_a, you will notice a difference here. We do have all the name, result, and symbol added within this dir of this instance because all the attributes has been added. Now, when we pass the class name, we only got the methods. When we pass the instance name here, we got all the attributes and the methods. So I will just mention this in 2 different lines as well. So here I will be copying this and mentioning here. So, and this is all the modules, and this is all the modules and attributes with object. So this is to be kept in mind, and this is basically the class. Dir basically gives you all modules.
Hey there, check out UI5CN for awesome hands-on courses on enterprise technologies like SAP and more. To watch similar videos, subscribe to UI5CN YouTube channel.